Well, lovely morning. And we've been fortunate this weekend with some lovely weather. Bit chilly, but nice to see. I don't know where I come from, North Yorkshire, and we seem to have nothing but rain and more rain and grey skies. So it's lovely to come out on a day like this and think, makes you feel better, doesn't it? Suddenly makes you feel that life's good again, you know. Not that it wasn't good before, but it does improve things, doesn't it? It makes us feel better. So, yes, I'm Chris Newsom, and I've come all the way from Malton in North Yorkshire with my wife Janice today, and very happy that you invited us to come, and looking forward to it, looking forward to talking to you. You look fairly friendly, so I think it'll be right. Change is happening, and each of us is invited. Do we fear it? Do we honour it? Do we try and stop it happening? That's the question, isn't it? And none of us can. We can't stop change, can we? The only thing that's certain in life, someone has once said, is change. We know that tomorrow will be different than today, and the day after will be different. And there might only be minor changes, or there might be huge changes, but one thing we guarantee is that there will be change. And when you get to a certain age that I am now, I sometimes hear myself saying, well, things ain't what they used to be, things ain't what they used to be, things ain't what they used to be. You know that? You know the feeling?
Yeah.
You're thinking, not quite sure whether I'm standing on my head or what, because of the changes. Today's service is a bit different. There isn't going to be a sermon, not going to be an address, just a commentary. And the commentary is on the words you've already heard. There's nothing really new apart from a couple of poems that we might introduce on the way. And I know that here, Newcastle, you're keen to find different ways of doing things. Is that right? Yeah. Trying to look for, because we all have to do that. As part of the change, it's in being a regular churchgoer, a regular attender at a Unitarian church or wherever, you can see people disappearing and they're gone. And COVID made the situation worse, probably, didn't it? People stopped going out to church altogether. It's difficult for us to understand quite what's happening and to get a grip on it. But change is happening for a reason, and we don't know what that reason is. It's puzzling, it's strange, and because I think as part of our human nature we want to feel that we've got control of everything that's happening. We want to feel that we've got the mastery of our life, don't we? And as you live your life you realise there are things you can get mastery of, but there are other things you couldn't have changed if you look back, and you can't change what's coming now. So welcome again. So the first line of our chalice lighting said, this chalice is for the living. Not much point having a chalice reading that's for the dead, really, is it? But it's an assumption that we are living here, that we are now speaking in this current moment. And this current moment is what we have. Really, from a spiritual point of view, it's only ever what we have. We don't have the future, and we don't have the past anymore. But we have this moment. And in this moment, we can affect our change that's going to happen. We are not only actors on the stage, but we are, in some ways of bringing new things on. And we can change things a little bit. Some things. So it's for all of us today. We're here today, whether on the internet or in this room. This is for us. The challenge is for the living. It's for the changing. Next line. Next point. So change is inevitable. One thing that we notice about this time of the year, it's all change, isn't it? If you've got a garden, or you live near gardens, you'll know that there's no way of stopping the change. Things are coming up through the ground, new growth, the trees are budding, flowers are coming out, the magnolias are flowering in people's gardens. I love the magnolias. You do love those big white flowers when they come out. Unfortunately, there's a lot of wind about. They don't last very long, but they're gorgeous. It's just a celebration. Hey, look what's happening. We're done with winter, and the change is here. And the festivals that we've got at this time of year, whether it be Easter, or coming up to Beltane, from the calendar, from the Celtic calendar, was all about change. It's all about newness and new life and new things. Springtime, the evolving, the growing and the dying. We're in the flow. It's interesting, that, isn't it? Just to say that everything is flowing. I had a conversation with somebody, actually a Jehovah's Witness on our door, came to our door. I know something about Jehovah's Witness because I was one for 30 years, so that's come up. There've been a few changes since then for me. But the witness was saying to me, well, humans can live forever on this earth. So that begs the question, where are we going to put everybody? It's going to be an awful lot. So we are part of a cycle of birth, death, birth and death, all things are flowing. So right here this morning, we are part of that flow. We're in that flow now, aren't we? We're actually involved in it. The becoming. What we do today is part of what we will become. You coming here this morning is not coincidental, I would suggest to you. It's part of who you are, and it's part of what you will become. Just think about that for a moment. All the options that you had this morning, turn over in bed, go and do something else, go to the shopping centre, whatever. You didn't, you came here. Why? What's routine? Yes, you do it out of routine. You do it out because you get something back. There's something valuable that you're gaining here, something that's new, and perhaps you scratch your head and thinking, well, if we find this really attractive and interesting and vital to our lives, why isn't it more people don't feel the same? Are we strange? Well, yes, we are strange. That's part of life, isn't it? There's nobody that's not strange in some way or other who wants to be normal, really. So yes, it's not, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's what we value and those things that we value. And we want more people to value the same things that we are valuing. What would the world look like if there were many more Unitarians? You might say, well, it would be a quarrelsome place, wouldn't it? Or you might say, oh, I don't know what it would feel like. But we would hope that the qualities and the things that we stand for, if more people were practicing those things, the world would be a more peaceful, more settled place. And it's anything but, isn't it? Strangely, we know that. Sometimes we want change. We look at the wars going on in Gaza or in Ukraine. The one thing we want is change, isn't it? We don't want it to continue like it is at the moment. So we're part of this, bringing newness, new challenge. This chalice is for losing the script of who we are. Does that sound rather brutal? Have we really got to lose the script? Is that what we've been asked to do? Well, it goes on to say we're losing the script of what other people say we are. What other people think we are. That's the script we have to, from the time that we are children, we are conditioned to believing that we are something other than we are. And maybe our parents didn't want us to change. They set the pattern for us, and that was what we were going to become. And maybe that was it, how we would work, what we would do, who we would marry. All of those things were fixed, as it were. But then, again, we are creatures of change, so many of us wanted to break out from that. So we're not conditioned by the next lines that come. And that says we're not conditioned by what we are in other people's stories. Sometimes it's helpful to be what other people say about us. We all like to be respected, don't we? We always like to feel we are really wanting to be happy and people to look at us and respect us. That's true. But sometimes that's very restrictive. I'm sure if you look back on your life, there'll be times when somebody said you shouldn't do that. That's not what you should be doing. And you might have felt, oh, blow that, I'm going to do it anyway. Have you ever done that? No, of course you're not. You're too respectable. But it's true, isn't it? It's part of the human nature. We want to be free. What was the purpose behind having a song, a hymn?
Because people love music.
Yes. But sometimes, it's been rather unpolitely called a hymn sandwich when we have a service. The things you put in, sometimes it's a question of the things in the sandwich, the filling in the sandwich. Not exactly unpalatable, not very interesting. But actually the songs are important because they are repeating to us some very important. So when I choose the songs, and when any worship leader chooses the songs, invariably they choose the songs for the words as well as the melodies. And the idea that we come and sing a song, come and be a change. In our context, come and be the change with me. Go along with what you're thinking about. Take my hand and let's do this change together. Let's do this together. Let's make the change together. So we now are coming to a time for the story. Now this is a story of big change quite early on, Janice, isn't it? You want to stand up on the microphone.
In the beginning, there was fire and love. Sometimes someone comes along who changes the way you see things. Wise women have always borne great wisdom and often shared their wisdom by telling stories. Once upon a time, not that very long ago, an old wise woman stood by a burning fire, her eyes shining like stars in the firelight. As I remember, and I might not quite have it exactly right, as I was quite small back then, this is what she said as she invited us closer on that starry, starry night. "Come, come," said she, in the way and manner of all great storytellers. "Look deeply into the firelight. In the flicker, can you see the beginnings of everything? Can you walk where your ancestors walked long ago?" Strange question. What could she mean? She started her words seemed to fill the air like perfume. In the beginning, there was fire and love, she said, like a bubbling cauldron. This was before the naming of the 10,000 things. Just fire and love, the nameless ones, gods, elementals, as yet incognito, formless and waste. She continued, her voice rising and falling, crackling like the flames. Fire and love bound together deep within a kernel of isness, no space, no place. The fire of the burning bush and the Shekinah of love entwined. She added, her eyes misting over, if you liked the blue touch paper, stand well back, especially with a big bang expected any time. Now, the observant follower of the story will have spotted the contradiction. There was as yet no blue, or touch, or paper, or place to stand. Only in the dream time can this story be fully told. She continued, now fire needs something to burn, and love needs a destination, somewhere to rest. Kernels are okay for nuts, but not for an ever-expanding creation, too narrow a viewpoint. Look, in flame a restlessness grows, hubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Love says to fire, let's risk all. And bang was born, the big one, and it all began. Time and space knew no bounds, no limits. Suddenly there was a beginning and an after. In that auspicious day, fire and love were joined in holy matrimony. Only there was no holy or unholy, just the potential. The love match between fire and love began in wild ecstasy. Everything flew in total abandon. Universes flared, stars exploded, black holes sucked and blew. Like any matrimonial arrangement, upset was bound to occur. Fire knew no limit, too interested in consummation. Meanwhile, love found no resting, no destination. The embers of the fire had turned grey and cold. Alchemy, like magic, had lapped its tongue. The old storyteller, now dozing in a dream, her work near done. Suddenly she came to at the start. The story is not yet done. Love has no resting place, no home, she cried. Now, with clearing vision, she saw the end of the first chapter. So at last, fire and love sat together in the midst of the smoulder and chaos. Dear fire, love said, I dream of blue-green worlds filled with colour, living creatures and new elementals of wind and water, of light and little loves like me, children. They agreed a compromise, the twosome. Fire agreed to calm its ardour, to go slow if love would in exchange still allow the occasional volcano, a meteor or two, and bonfires. In turn, love would nurture the new and gradually create her paradise. Fire looked into the eyes of love and saw that it was good, and it came to be just so, an evening and morning of a new day. So for all time let it be known that in the beginning there was fire and love. Love needs the passion of flame. Fire needs the old and the new to consume. But the greatest of the two is love, which needs a resting place. The old woman slowly rose, enwrapped in her wise ways, a broad, wry smile and mischievous eyes lighting her way. The fire spent, and old bones like mine must find new warmth elsewhere. Right now, new stories are bursting to be told, new creations to be born. Farewell, travel light, and she was gone, but the story remains. Stories are what we're made of. How many stories have been told in 13 billion years? And yet, Are we any nearer the answer? If indeed there is one. We're part of 6.9 billion stories now being told, and none as yet complete. When we mix traditional storytelling with the latest discoveries of science, our stories and beliefs run to catch up. Or to put another way, we're all in this story together.
Thank you. In the beginning there was fire and there was love. And that's one take on it, isn't it? One way of explaining it. It could be, you prefer the Genesis account, that the Spirit of God was moving over to and fro over the land, over the sea. But we all need to know where we came from. Not a feeling of where we belong. And the story is very good about change, because once we get an imbalance, as there are many imbalances in our world today, we need to get somehow to get to a balance again. We need to come to get that balance, to that change. But what changes have taken place in all those billions of years? Can you imagine living in the time of the dinosaurs? Can you imagine when the Himalayas were being forced up like toys high into the sky by the forces on this earth? Can you imagine living there? In which time would you like to live? I think today's got something to say for it, hasn't it? Something, even though the changes are going on. Because the changes that started back then, whether it's through the idea of a creator or the processes, natural processes, are continuing to this day. And each period of time, there has been massive and huge changes. And we live in times of huge changes, don't we? Upheavals, and doubt and understanding what way we're going. Fill me with a vision, clear my mind of fear and confusion. Now that's the clarity of knowing where we're going and what we're hoping to achieve. But often we don't. In the challenge reading it says, this challenge is for the lost GPS, our old sat-nav. It was supposed to show us how to get where we were expected to go, usually by others. In the village where I used to live, there was a narrow lane between two roads, two main roads. And like many roads, it was very narrow. And about halfway down this narrow road, there was a hairpin bend. And somewhere the sat-navs of the lorry drivers who used to come up and down that area used to think there's a quick shortcut between these two main roads, and they set off down this track which got narrower and narrower and narrower. And imagine you get into a big articulated lorry and suddenly the road goes right angles. You can't go back because you couldn't back down, and you can't go forward because you can't get round. Is that sometimes how we feel about life? We've got ourselves down this narrow track to two main roads. But somehow life's a bit like that sometimes, and we're being felt we're being squeezed as we're moving along life. Life seems to be squeezing us, and on the basis of that, I wrote a poem. And it's called My Sat-Nav is Broken. And it's usually she who speaks from her sat-nav, depending on what your settings you've got. Some of you may not be familiar with sat-navs, but they are they're quite useful if you want to find the way sometimes. She who gives directions now tells me only I'm over life's speed limit. I scroll through recent memorable routes, but no one said, reached your destination. Maybe I've lost confidence and don't want my ageing bulk to get stuck in an ever-narrowing byway. Maybe there are just too many possibles. So where did I put that impenetrable manual? Amongst Bibles, DIY and self-help gurus, quickest, shortest, most environmental. Can't quite say when I favoured the scenic route. And who cares lest I miss my appointment? For someone, somewhere, is expecting me. And the next generation are waiting to repair the tarmac of my endless seeking. Is that how it feels sometimes? You're stuck down the byway, not knowing which way to go. But then the next line of the chalice reading says, this chalice is for skipping directions. That was my manual. I had to learn the hard way that it's not quite always to be quite the way it works out. So it's a really question of what is this manual? Are we there for skipping directions? It says this in the Bible, but I feel intuitively that I should do that. I should respond in a different way, and I should do that. Do something differently. And maybe living adventurously is for us, or is it not for us? One thing I feel very strongly about is that this is the time to live adventurously. It isn't the time to fold up and say, I've had enough of this world, and it's going in the wrong direction, I just don't want to be part of it anymore. It's actually, we're at the cusp of something. Do you think so? Something's got to go, hasn't it? It's changed. Something's going to change. And there's loads of conspiracy theories around. I'm not going to go into any of those. But it's true, isn't it, that we do have the opportunity now of seeing things afresh. And we are not following our parents and grandparents' sat-navs anymore. We're doing things differently. And in doing things differently, we're finding a new way forward for the future. And Unitarians should be very good at that. We've got a head start on a lot of other groups, haven't we? We're ready, Unitarians, right? From very early on, thought differently and said, well, the establishment said you're going to do this, but now we're not going to do it. Going right back to 1662 and to Charles II and to the Act of Uniformity when 2,000 ministers lost their livelihood because they didn't, what was the reason? They couldn't accept the Book of Common Prayer. They just couldn't have conformity. And of course there weren't Unitarians as such back then, not in England. But it was a time that led to Unitarianism. So we come from a grand tradition. And Quakers are the same, which is also my other tradition. It started with a man called George Fox doing things differently and telling people, taking a different position. Saying you don't need all that hierarchy in the church, you can think for yourself. Now that's very modern, isn't it? That we can think for ourselves. That we can have a personal relationship with the divine. However we conceive that is, we don't need somebody else to tell us and to construct it and tell us what the terms and conditions are. So this challenge is for skipping directions. It's for colouring outside the lines. Now I'm dyslexic, and I had rather very difficult time at school, because being dyslexic, and certainly probably a little dyspraxic, and now all the names that they put to it. But you remember when you were taught at school, and you had 3 lines, and you had to put your G went below the line, and you had to sort of work within the lines. I had the most terrible difficulty as a child to work within those lines, to conform to that. So the rest of my life I've been trying not to conform to lines. I don't like lines, and it drives some people mad. But I say, well, if those are the instructions, are they there for a reason, or can I just say, well, no, I don't think so, I'll try this way, experiment with something different. Not always the case, sometimes, you know, if it was like the Green Cross Road. Do you remember the Green Cross Road? Look right, look left, and across the road. Those were things which were sensible thoughts that could probably saved our life at some point, so we didn't walk out in front of the traffic. But some of them you think, well, I'm not sure whether they were relevant, and were certainly not relevant today. So we can colour outside the lines. That's something. You know, remember when you were being taught to colour within the lines? I'm asking you, going back a little stretch now, aren't we? But at school, you were given these drawings, and you were supposed to colour within the lines. And the teacher would say, make sure you stay within the lines. And of course, for me, that was difficult, because I couldn't stay within the lines. I had to wander off somewhere else, doing it. That we are painting not by numbers. Painting not by numbers. So no rules, no tram lines, is what Unitarianism is about. We don't have a creed, we don't have a set doctrine, and we are exploring together as our Unitarian communities ways of doing things differently. It's come through experimenting. It's come from somebody saying, well, the current theory says this, but I think if I do this and do this, I'll get a different result. And, you know, so we suddenly understand things like nuclear physics. You understand what's going on at the time, because people have gone through and looked at things differently. And, you know, when they looked at the idea of nuclear physics, and I don't know a lot about it, but what I do know is that more than 100 years ago now, scientists who were discovering that at the subatomic level, things didn't work out the way they do here. So in other words, a molecule can be here and on the other side of the Earth, and they are connected to one another. And you think, when you look at the idea of Newtonian physics, that doesn't make sense. And it didn't make sense for those scientists, and they had to go back and check again. I'm thinking, no, that's not right. But when they were finding out the DNA, and the understanding about the DNA in the body, it would be, you know, with Crick and Watson looking at that, experimenting, looking at things. And you only can do it by experimentation, by looking at things. Painting not by numbers, but by silence. Is silence important to us? Being still. Do you find that if you can be still enough, the most important things in your life come bubbling up from somewhere? Yeah, somewhere inside, deep inside, that voice inside comes up, and you think, oh my goodness, why didn't I see that before? Well, the reason you didn't see it before was you weren't quiet enough. You didn't take the time to spend in your life to make it actually listen to it, and to realise that there in the silence is never silence, is it? There's no such thing as silence. You can't have silence. It's full of something. Everything, ultimately, in the story that we got just a few minutes ago, That all came out of nothing. It came out of silence, if you like. Before the Big Bang, there was silence. There was a space. What went before that? Well, we don't know. Maybe there was another Big Bang, and maybe there was other Big Bang. But going back, there's always been spaces and silence. If you're a musician, so I think David's a musician, what's the important thing in a piece of music? The silence. It's not the notes, is it? If you didn't have the silence, you couldn't have the music. The music actually can only be referenced through the silence. So silence is important. Now it's time for us to just spend time in reflection and prayer, upholding. What do we call the divine? We've probably got as many names for it as in this room. We probably have different names. What we do. So where do we go with this? Well, I'll use the words that are meaningful to me. Let's just pray. Dear Spirit of life, you are a mystery, but we can feel your hand guiding us, showing us the way forward. And however imperfectly we do it, when we try to form some words, our words that mean something for us, to express our sorrow at the state of the world, to ask if there is an intervention to be had that the suffering stops. To those who are suffering because of warfare in Gaza and Ukraine might find some relief. The Spirit of life, what can we do? The question we need to ask ourselves always, what can we do? I don't know. But we can ask for guidance, for clarity, for comfort, for love. Love never fails. May we, as a group of Unitarians this morning meeting here, find answers to some of our questions. Just as you, as the Spirit of life, give life to the daffodils in front of you. And when I look at these daffodils and tulips, I think the world's all right, isn't it? It's more than all right. How do we have this beauty amongst the upheaval? These are questions we ask. We know that we might not find answers, Spirit of life. But we seek. That's why we're coming here, to seek answers. To find within ourselves and beyond ourselves comfort. So may we find that comfort this morning. May we also find challenge. May we not come in the door and go out exactly as we came in. may we continue to wrestle with the difficult questions, knowing that love is the answer. Changes are coming, changes are coming, and we are invited to be part of it. Now the latter part of the challenge reading moves very quickly, so I'll try to move quickly. It speaks by wild abandon. Does that sound like the sort of advice we might expect to hear here? Are we part of wild abandon? Are we capable of a bit of wild abandon? I think looking at you, capable of a bit of wild abandon. Yeah. With a brush, you've made yourself from light deep inside. Artists are often quite particular about the brushes they use. It's very Unitarian. The implements we use can be quite precious, can't we? Quite precious about some of our traditions, quite precious about things. We find, how many have dabbled in art here? Yeah. Well, no, Jan's house, you know, because I met it, so they've got your piece of art on the front of the programme there. Yeah. And I know if I try to fiddle around with Jan's brushes, I'll be in trouble. Quite particular. The brush you made yourself, imagine that. From deep inside. The brush that we are talking about is a brush that we are changing and honing so that it does the things that we want it to do. And that is our faith. We are changing and honing our faith to do what we want it to do, to what we feel the divine wants it to do, which are valuable, I want to them, but also this tuning and making it. And then it goes on to speed up, startling, vivid, a new voice that already knows you, finally, a true story. A new voice that already knows you. I wonder what that means. Maybe the answers we've been seeking are there all the time. Yeah. And we look at the small in numbers, fallen numbers of Unitarians, the same with other religions, Quakers or whoever, and we think, I'm puzzled by this. Can we survive? Are we going to go to the next generation? All those sort of things. And yet the answers, according to this, are startling, they're vivid, and there's a new voice that already knows the answer. We just need to keep seeking and keep hoping. Another poem from one of my favourite poets, Rabindranath Tagore. Thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure. This frail vessel thou emptiest again and again, and fillest it ever with fresh life. This little flute of a reed thou hast carried over hills and dales, and hast cast through its melodies eternally new. At the immortal touch of thy hands, my little heart loses its limits in joy, and gives birth to utterance ineffable. Thy infinite gifts come to me only on these very small hands of mine. Ages pass, and thou still pourest, and still there is room to fill. That's from Gitanjali, which is a very famous piece of writings by Rabindranath Tagore. W.B. Yeats was a great fan of his, and other people wrote about the turn of the 20th century were. And here he's describing that life has been emptied and filled, emptied and filled, emptied and filled. It's a continual process. So sometimes we feel absolutely empty, and then suddenly we feel voiced up and full. I don't know how you're feeling now after this service. Are you feeling empty? Or are you starting to say, ooh, it's bubbling up? Hope not overflowing. Well, if it is, maybe, but that's right. So thank you for inviting me here. It's been a pleasure. And you might want to challenge me on some of the things I've said. I hope you will. So what did you mean by that? Because that means you've been listening. And if you've been listening, my job's done. Are we part of it? I hope so. It's very difficult not to be. Go in peace. Thank you.